building and the tanks that do, and the sewage ponds that the observatory are going to. This is something very similar to what we are wanting to build. The only difference, and this one exists in the county. This one's at Snowshoe in the parking lot right down from Rimfire. It's right in the rim, right below the hill in Rimfire. The only difference is going to be with this one, the one over here, ours is going to have a cover. It'll be covered. Because we get 50 inches of rain a year. And we don't want to have to pay to dispose of 50 inches of rainwater. So it will be covered. Will be monitored for air control. This tank is, most generally, chain link fence is about 10 foot. So you know, you've got about 45 foot this way. You've got about 30 foot. That's about 45 by 30 foot wide. 45 foot long by 30 foot wide. And so it's very similar, the same size. Ours will be like 30 by 30 by 8 and with a cover. Something very similar to the, about the same size, probably a little bit bigger than the pond that you have up the side of your house in there. So somewhere in that vicinity is what it's going to be. If you're out at the road, looking in, this is what we want to make the property look like. We don't want to have to be able to see anything from the road either.
You showed this and explained the observatory, but what I'm interested in, now where do you go to get all this sewer to fill all these tanks you're planning on putting up in there?
Now we're planning on putting 150,000 gallon tank in. You pump
Where's that going to come from, man?
From septic systems. You know,
and what locations are you?
From
what's your area you travel?
We cover Green Bay, Pocahontas County. We can pump in Pocahontas County, Highland County, Virginia, Bath County, Virginia. It's a good question. I mean, I know what you're getting at. Let me explain the snowshoe question. The report in Pocahontas Times. The Pocahontas Times reporter done a very good job of reporting that story. One main fact that he left out of that story was what is the legal thing you could do if Snowshoe Public Service District's sewer truck broke down at Snowshoe and they wasn't able to pump for a week to keep Hawthorne Restaurant open, the boathouse open, and the sugar shack open. Those three facilities go out into a sewage holding tank. Snowshoe Public Service District picks that sewer up and takes it to the plant of the Silver Creek. They were wanting a way to keep those three businesses open in case their truck would happen to break down. Legally, let me back up before I get to the legal part of it. Public Service District at Snowshoe owns the one tank down Hawthorne Valley. They do not own the two tanks at the boathouse and the sugar shack that those go out into. Legally, we could pick up sewage from the Hawthorne tank and take it to the sewage processing plant at Silver Creek. The one at the boathouse and the one at the sugar shack, we cannot legally pick that up and take it to Snowshoe's or Silver Creek sewer plant. That would have to be, if we picked it up to get those two businesses keeping in operation, we would have to have taken that sewer to a approved sewage disposal site, either in Raynell, Elkins is taking it, Clarksburg takes it, or Verona, Virginia. There's 4 places that we can actually take sewer to a sewage treatment facility. We do also have a land application permit up at Governor's Field, and we can get to that in a little bit if you want to. But legally, and if their truck had been broke down, and those businesses hadn't been pumped out for a week, there would have been a time frame there that we would have needed to try to help them to get them back in business. We could have brought it in, put it in our holding tank until we got to Weather, snowshoe, most of the time, probably winter like we've had this winter, you're not going to be wanting to go across Sheep Mountain with a load of sewer. It'd be easier to bring it back here, bring it back and hold it for a day or two until we can take it to a proper disposal facility. That's what went on. Now, it wasn't what was reported. We're not bringing snowshoe sewage down here.
Okay,
Hopefully.
we're talking about the sewage, Mike.
Okay.
You didn't show any pictures of the junkyard piled up there.
Okay, let's deal with the sewage first, then we'll go.
All right, you got junk and you got sewer.
Okay,
Now, to me, this is.
Okay, let's deal with the sewer first, then we'll deal with the junkyard. I think would be the best way to do it, or if you want to jump.
Well, I'm not finished yet. I got a few more words and I'm done.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to tell the people of Green Bank, once Jacob Meeks gets started here, don't quit. You're going to see this thing expand and expand. For people all over the country ain't got no place to take their junk and sewer. Are we going to let them bring it here in Green Bank? Why in the world would anybody in their right mind get started in Green Bank with a sewer plant, junk, right here in the middle of town?
Maybe we're not the first people.
I can't understand it.
Let me ask you a question. We're not the first people to have a junkyard in Green Bay. You remember right behind the boxes in the 60s and 70s? Remember Neil Snyder had his cars stored out?
It would have had to have been done well before this February 27th letter where the Greenbrier Valley Economic Group said about the 9 acres.
Yes, ma'am.
So all of this was done well before the meeting last week, which of course we didn't find out about it till the day before. Well, so here you have this survey that's already done up, and you have on here that there's a 100,000 gallon above the ground tank. Now last year, Mike, you told us that was not going to be covered. That's what you told us last year. So we're talking 100,000 gallon above the ground tank, and then there's a thing for 50,000 gallons each. You're talking 400,000 gallons of sewage.
We are not putting up to 100,000.
Well, wait a minute, what's the regular test?
Why did you pay that?
That's what it says here.
We have to be. I'll explain this to you.
I've got a copy.
The original survey was done last year, but not last year, year before last, the December County Commission meeting of 2010. The County Commission voted to have this additional property surveyed in our behalf when we were going to originally purchase it. That's when the survey was done. But even then you were considering this, and you never presented that last year at our meeting.
No, we didn't. Last year, we was planning on putting up 100,000 beyond that. Whenever we had the meeting at the observatory, we was planning on putting up 100,000 gallons.
But this also includes 50,000, including the 100,000. You're talking 400,000.
6 places that could be built to
Could
proper setbacks. But we have to have the setbacks. We have to have a deed-free property before we can go to DEP. That's 6 places that the engineer said we could put a pit. But like the pit that we was showing here on the screen.
Doesn't say
It's not saying that we're going to build those, but hopefully. Let me tell you what the best case scenario is in the future. They're getting ready to build 2 sewage treatment plants at Snowshoe.
No, they're not.
I
talked to him in the tree.